culture is more than just entertainment. It's a lens into society, relationships, and human behavior. I'm Grace, and here on The Grace Report, we dive into stories beyond the headlines. Whether it's reality TV drama, celebrity scandals, or royal family intrigue, I'm here to break it all down. What it means, why it matters, and how it reflects the world we live in. Join the conversation, share your take, and let's make sense of the culture shaping our lives one story at a time. What is happening? Do you guys hear me okay? Or is this video continuously looping? So sorry, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me on such short notice. Shout out to those of you who are there for this morning's episode of The Morning Report, in which we did an overview about this case that Blake Lively filed against her It Ends With Us co-star, Justin Baldoni. You guys still can't hear me, or yes? Okay. Now you guys can hear me. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. So let's go ahead and read the lawsuit in its entirety. Sorry, I'm a little bit late here. We just did the Real Housewives of Potomac live stream with Kempire and Layla, and we always have a great time when we're together. And so time just escaped us, and that is why we are starting a little bit later here. Let's go ahead. I've got the full lawsuit. And so just an FYI, you guys, it is about 80 pages long. So we're going to be here for quite some time. So get comfortable and let's dig in, shall we? So on the first page of the complaint, you can see Blake Lively. Her attorneys are listed here. And then the defendants are listed as Justin Baldoni and his production company, Wayfair Studios. Now, the complaints are for damages for actual harassment, retaliation, failure to investigate, prevent, and or remedy harassment, retaliation again, according to a different labor code, aiding and abetting harassment and retaliation, breach of contract, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence, false light invasion of privacy, interference with prospective economic advantage. So there are an awful lot of things that Blake is about to be suing for. So just FYI, you guys, this is not yet been filed as a full-blown lawsuit. It is currently a complaint. And I will let you guys know when they actually file a full-blown lawsuit. But just right now, they're letting them know that we've got your number, we've got your slip, and this is everything that we've got on you and that we will be suing for. Hi, Kahara. It is so nice to see you here. Welcome. I hope you enjoy your first live with me. Now, let's get into the introduction of the lawsuit, shall we? On January 4, 2024, prior to resuming filming of It Ends With Us, following guild strikes, an all-hands meeting was convened to address the hostile work environment that had nearly derailed production of the film. Attendees of the meeting included Justin Baldoni, who is the co-chairman and co-founder of Wayfair Studios, and owner of the film, as well as the director, executive producer, and actor in the lead role of Ryle Kincaid. Jamie Heath, the chief executive officer of Wayfair and producer of the film, Ange Giannetti, the film's representative for its distributor, Sony Pictures Entertainment, Alex Sachs, a producer on the film, Todd Black, a producer on the film, and Blake Lively, who played the role of Lily Bloom in the film. Ms. Lively also had the agreed upon right to have a representative present. She chose her husband, given that the meeting was about repeated sexual harassment and other disturbing behavior by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. So for those of you who had been wondering, hey, like, where was Blake's husband? Why didn't he step in? He's a punk. He's this, he's that. It says right there, clear as day, in the beginning of the lawsuit, first paragraph, he was there standing up for his wife. Let's go to line 2. As discussed in detail below, Ms. Lively was forced to address concerns about Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's misconduct with them directly, and began doing so months before filming began. The concerns she raised were not only for herself, but for the other female cast and crew, some of whom had also spoken up. The January 4th meeting occurred only after Wayfarer had rebuffed Ms. Lively's efforts repeatedly. So one thing I'm a little bit disappointed to read right here is that there were other women who also had grievances to air about the way in which the film was being managed and, privacy or whatever else things were happening. They haven't spoken out publicly on behalf of Blake. The only other people who have spoken out publicly on behalf of Blake include Colleen Hoover, the author of the book, and Blake's Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants former co-star. So I am a little disappointed in that. Moving along, during the January 4th meeting, the parties discussed in detail the inappropriate conduct that Ms. Lively, her employees, and other cast and crew experienced at the hands of Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. After the list below was reviewed and discussed in its entirety, all parties present agreed that the outlined contact would cease. So these are some of the things that were happening that they had to address, okay? So number one, no more showing nude videos or images of women, including producer's wife, to Blake Lively and or her employees. Now, Justin, why the hell were you doing that? I'm sure your wife did not want for her nudes to be shown to people working on a film with you. That is weirdo behavior. Number two, no more mention of Mr. Baldoni's or Mr. Heath's previous pornography addiction or Blake Lively's lack of pornography consumption to Blake Lively or to other crew members. No, again, why is this coming up in a film about DV, right? No more discussion to Blake Lively and or her employees about personal experiences with X, including as it relates to spouses or others. No more mention to Blake or her employees of personal times that physical consent was not given in actual acts, either the abuser or the abused. So, and we'll get into that later on in the lawsuit, but apparently Justin told her that there were times where he would be having intercourse with people, allegedly knowing that they weren't into it, and he didn't care. And that's, again, very scary, disturbing behavior and things to admit and to be discussing like it's nothing. No more descriptions of their own genitalia to Blake. No more jokes or disparaging comments to be made to Blake and or her employees about HR complaints Wayfarer has already received on set or about, quote, missing the HR meeting. No more inquiries by Mr. Baldoni's to Blake's trainer without her knowledge or consent to disclose her weight. No more mention by Mr. Baldoni of him speaking to Blake Lively's dead father. Yep, you heard that right. No more pressing by Mr. Baldoni for Blake Lively to disclose her religious beliefs or unsolicited sharing of his. Very weird. If Blake Lively and or her infant is exposed to COVID again, Blake Lively must be provided with immediate notice as soon as Wayfarer or other producers become aware of such exposure without her needing to uncover days later herself. Yikes. An intimacy coordinator must be present at all times when Blake Lively is on set in scenes with Mr. Baldoni. No more personal, physical touching of or actual comments by Mr. Baldoni or Mr. Heath to be tolerated by Blake Lively and or any of her employees, as well as any female cast or crew without their express consent. So what is with this touching people without their consent? Like, we already went through this, didn't we? Like almost 10 years ago during the 2016 Me Too movement. Why are we still doing this? No more improvising of kissing. All intimate touch must be choreographed in advance with Blake Lively and an intimacy coordinator. No biting or sucking of lip without Blake Lively's consent. And all intimate on-camera touch and conversations must be in character, not spoken from Mr. Baldoni to Blake Lively personally. Blake Lively to have a representative on set at all times and with a monitor during scenes involving nudity, sexual activity, or violence with Mr. Baldoni. All actors participating with Blake Lively in intimate scenes involving her being in any state of nudity or simulated nudity must be classified as active working actors, not friends of the director or producers, and must be pre-approved by Blake. Isn't that crazy that this guy allegedly had his friend come to set on days where Blake would be nude to be like, hey, look what we've got going on. Come watch this. She's going to be nude today. That is not okay. That is scary, predatory behavior. And the fact that he did this to someone allegedly did this to someone as powerful as Blake, it makes you wonder what he was doing on other sets with actresses who didn't have the power that Blake has, the name recognition, the powerful husband, everything else, Very, very creepy, scary stuff. Like all of this stuff seems like commonsensical, yet with him, apparently it wasn't. Yikes, right? And I feel bad that Blake was ever even in this position. Like, holy cow, was she ever traumatized during the filming of this film? No more filming of any Blake nudity without a fully executed SAG-compliant nudity rider in place. Any such footage already shot without this rider in place and in direct violation of SAG requirements may not be used without Blake and her legal representative's prior written consent. Any scene by Blake or another performer depicting the character of Lily that involves nudity or simulated X must be conducted strictly in accordance with the above referenced nudity rider and must adhere to the Blake Lively approved script. An intimacy coordinator must be on set for all scenes involving nudity and or simulated X and must have a monitor to ensure compliance. No monitors to be viewed or accessible on set or remotely during closed set scenes except by Blake Lively approved essential crew and personnel. No more entering, attempting to enter, interrupting, pressuring, or asking Blake to enter her trailer or the makeup trailer by Mr. Heath or Mr. Baldoni while she is nude for any reason. The fact that this allegedly happened several times, like, it's not accidental, it's weird. No more private, multi-hour meetings in Blake Lively's trailer with Mr. and Baldoni crying with no outside Blake Lively appointed representative to monitor. Now, Mr. Baldoni, what are you doing in Blake Lively's trailer crying? That is so weird. What reason did he have to cry? Go cry to your wife. What are you bothering this woman for? Jeez. Whew. And the list goes on. And to think that all of these things are things that happened, and that is why a meeting was called, and that's why they are being listed. We're not even at the end of this, guys. All of these things are things that Blake allegedly experienced. That's insane. No more pressuring by Mr. Baldoni to sage any of Blake's employees. Producer Alex Sachs to be given standard rights, inclusion, and authority per her job description and as represented to Blake Lively when signing on. Sony must have an active daily role in overseeing physical production for the remainder of the film to monitor safety for cast and crew, schedule logistics, problem solving, and creative. So there it is. This is stuff for other people as well. So from 1 to 23, it's things that she experienced and she suffered and she doesn't want to happen anymore. 24, she's also advocating for other people. So other people were allegedly victim to bizarre behavior. Engagement of an experienced producer to supervise the safety of the cast and crew, okay? Schedule logistics, problem solving, and creative for the remainder of the shot. For examples, Todd Lieberman, Elizabeth Quintillion, Miri Yoon, Lynette Howell. Engagement of a Blake-approved A-list stunt double to perform Lily in scenes with Mr. Baldoni involving rape and or violence. BL to perform only close-up work or work from a Blake-approved shot list in scenes with Mr. Baldoni involving actual violence. No more adding of X scenes, oral X, or on-camera climaxing by Blake Lively outside of the scope of the Blake Lively approved when signing onto the project. No more asking or pressuring Blake to cross physical picket lines. No more retaliatory or abusive behavior to Blake for raising concerns or requesting safeguards. An in-person meeting before production resumes with Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, Ms. Sachs, the Sony representative, and new producer Blake Lively and Blake Lively's spouse Ryan Reynolds to confirm and approve a plan for implementation of the above that will be adhered to for the physical and emotional safety of Blake, her employees, and all the cast and crew moving forward. Like, guys, this sounded like the sent from hell. To think that this is something that you experience and then the person who allegedly made you experience this turns around and leads a smear campaign claiming that you're changing things because you're stuck up, you're a Nepo baby snob, your husband is overbearing, all sorts of things. Like, that's really sad. So moving forward, she says this meeting was an essential step in a process the parties had agreed to several months before and allowed the cast and crew to safely resume production of the film. In mid-November 2023, the parties had agreed in writing to implement a list of protections enumerated in a contract entitled Protections for Return to Production, attached hereinto as Exhibit A, which included 17 provisions designed to require Wayfarer to cease the on-set behavior of Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath, One of those provisions required an all-hands meeting to confirm and approve a plan for the implementation of certain protections that will be adhered to for the physical and emotional safety of Blake Lively, her employees, and all cast and crew moving forward. After receiving the document, Wayfair responded that Wayfair, Sony, and production respectfully acknowledge that Ms. Lively has concerns regarding safety, professionalism, and workplace culture. Although our perspective differs in many aspects, ensuring a safe environment for all is paramount, irrespective of differing viewpoints. Regarding your outlined requests, we find most of them not only reasonable, but also essential for the benefit of all parties involved. So it sounds like they were rather reasonable, although you have to be unreasonable for someone to even ask for this, but still, I'll give them credit where credit is due. At the end of the January 4 meeting, having discussed at length the details of concerns that had been expressed by Ms. Lively and others, the parties agreed to implement and follow the protections for return to production to ensure that the film could be completed, marketed, and released safely and successfully. And it was. Production of the film resumed on January 5 and concluded on February 9, 2024. The film has been a resounding success. Leading up to and in connection with the release of the film, during the summer of 2024, Ms. Lively and fellow cast members promoted the film in accordance with the marketing plan created and delivered by the film's distributor, Sony, which is summarized in the talking points attached hereto as Exhibit C. Ms. Lively and other cast members were under a contractual obligation to render promotional services in accordance with the marketing plan. The marketing plan directed the cast to, quote, focus more on Lily's strength and resilience as opposed to describing the film as a story about DV, and to avoid talking about this film that in a way that makes it feel sad or heavy. It's a story of hope. So they do attach proof that that was the case. And this is a major talking point that was happening during the campaign against Blake, where people were like, oh, she's being very flippant. Why isn't she talking about how heavy it is or this or that? Well, listen, Sony Pictures said don't do that. In the days leading up to the film's release, Mr. Baldoni abruptly pivoted away from the film's marketing plan and the types of publicity activities in which he had previously participated. What the public did not know was that Mr. Baldoni and his team did so in an effort to explain why many of the film's cast and crew had unfollowed Mr. Baldoni on social media and were not appearing with him in public. To that end, he and his team used domestic violence survivor content to protect his public image, as described in further detail below. What the public also did not know was that this was the beginning of a multi-tiered plan that Mr. Baldoni and his team described as social manipulation designed to destroy Ms. Lively's reputation. And these are in quotes. These are things that Baldoni and his team literally said, allegedly. The plan was backed by virtually unlimited resources. Wayfair's co-founder, co-chairman, and leading financier is multi-billionaire Steve Sarowitz, who divulged at the film's New York premiere on August 6, 2024, that he was prepared to spend $100 million to ruin the lives of Miss Lively and her family. Can you imagine spending $100 million on that? You can spend it on a yacht. You can spend it on a vacation. You can spend it on houses, on, helping people, and you choose to spend it to destroy Blake Lively. Insane. This is why people don't want people having this foolish amount of money, right? You could be paying off people's student loan debts, people's medical debts, and this is what you want to spend it on. With that backing, Mr. Baldoni and his Wayfarer associates embarked on a sophisticated press and digital plan in retaliation for Ms. Lively's exercising her legally protected right to speak up about their misconduct on the set, with the additional objective of intimidating her and anyone else from revealing in public what actually occurred. On July 31st, 2024, following the recommendation of their publicist, Jennifer Abel, Wayfarer and Mr. Baldoni retained a crisis communication specialist named Melissa Nathan and her company, the agency group PR LLC, also known as TAG. Ms. Nathan delivered a proposal to Mr. Baldoni, which included a, quote, website to discuss, full Reddit, full social account takedowns, full social crisis team on hand for anything, engage with audiences in the right way, start threads of theories. This is the way to be fully 100% protected. Ms. Nathan also proposed the creation of social fan engagement to go back and forth with any negative accounts, helping to change narrative and stay on track. Per Ms. Nathan, all of this will be most importantly untraceable. As Ms. Abel described it, the plan was to engage in social media mitigation and proactive fan posting to counter the negative as well as social manipulation. This plan went well beyond standard crisis PR. What Ms. Nathan proposed included a practice known as astroturfing, which has been defined as the practice of publishing opinions or comments on the internet, in the media, etc., that appear to come from ordinary members of the public, but actually come from a particular company or political group. On August 2nd, 2024, TAG circulated a scenario planning document to Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, and others, which described preparations and strategy should Ms. Lively and her team make her grievances public. So the punishment plan. And there we go. We're about to start getting into the screen captured proof. Okay. Listen, Xanders, we are here reading the lawsuit. And if you do not want to, read the lawsuit, you are more than welcome to see your way out. Okay. Now let's get into the rest of it, plus the screenshot. Thank you so much for being here again. Rose, did you change your icon? Because I remember you here earlier. Hi, Jemina. Let me see if we got, this is why people don't like PR, and PR people will skate around the stuff that they do, right? It's all so crazy. Ali, I was looking for you. Thank you so much for popping up here this morning. Then I saw you on the Campfire Live, and here we are together again. Nice to see you. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, and other, okay, and is attached here too as Exhibit D. To get ahead of this narrative, Ms. Nathan's plan proposed strategies to advance misleading counter-narratives, including pushing Nathan's narrative that Ms. Lively had less than favorable reputation, proposing to explore planting stories about the weaponization of feminism, and misleadingly blaming Ms. Lively for production members' job losses. So these are the screenshots that were subpoenaed. And this is Justin Baldoni sending this message. Morning. Not in love with the document they sent. Not sure I'm feeling the protection I felt on the call. PR rep responding. This is the first time I've personally gone through scenario planning with them, so I think let's let them discuss the thinking behind the document and the actual process and protocol of how they implement these things. That's the most important part of this, is how quickly they can shut things down and place stories in your favor. There's the bias. Be honest on this call and let's give real feedback to each point. To which he responds, yeah, it just feels very much like there's not much defense, and also them feeling strong, like she's going to do something just a bit concerning what everyone had originally thought. Initially, Mr. Baldoni expressed concerns that TAG's written plan was insufficiently aggressive to protect him. Writing to Mr. Heath and Ms. Abel, he said he was not in love with the document they sent. Not sure I'm feeling the protection. So that's everything we just read. Okay. Later that day, Ms. Abel and Ms. Nathan exchanged the following text messages expressing that Mr. Baldoni wants to feel like Ms. Lively can be buried. Ms. Abel and Ms. Nathan agreed that, of course, they would do just that, but could not say so in writing. So here's a text message proof of what it is that Blake is claiming, right? From Justin Baldoni's representative speaking about her. Quote, you can of course do that, but I do think he needs to know. I'm going to confidentially send you something he's texting me and Jamie on the side just to arm you before this call. I think you guys need to be tough and show the strength of what you guys can do in these scenarios. He wants to feel like she can be buried. Of course, but when we send over documents, we can't send over the work we will or could do because that could get us in a lot of trouble. So Melissa, one of the coordinators here, already knew that this was not right. What they were doing. We can't write it down to him. We can't write that we will destroy her. We will go to this. We will do this. We will do this. We will do this. He has to look at it as an information document for us to be armed with. That's all. Imagine if a document saying all the things he wants ends up in the wrong hands. Surprise, surprise, right? And then she also said, we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him. I'll be very tough. And that is in regards to being tough on the phone call, where he wanted to be assured that Blake Lively, despite all of, her money, this, that, and the other, and influence, can still be buried. Okay, you guys? Now, moving forward, there are, of course, more text message proof, and they are as following. A few days later, on August 5th, 2024, Mr. Baldoni set the narrative for the social media campaign, sending Ms. Abel a screenshot of a thread on X that had accused another female celebrity of bullying women. And then he said, this is what we would need. This is what I was referring to in today's morning report on how unhinged this all was. So the person in this photo might be a little bit pixelated, but it's Hailey Bieber. And the tweet was saying that, like, here's a thread on how Hailey Bieber goes around bullying other women, and she has been for years. So you see that it's got hundreds of thousands of likes, thousands of quotes, tweets, and engagements, and that it had reached, like, you know, a lot of people, a lot of people. And he said that he wanted that for Blake Lively, which is unhinged. You're doing these scenes with her. You're allegedly violating her boundaries, and you're like, oh, now we need to go turn around, create a thread on Twitter saying that she's this terrible person. Like, that honestly it breaks my heart. It's really sickening to hear. Yes, I literally spoke to Melissa about this on the break, about what we discussed last night for social and digital. Focus on Reddit, TikTok, and Instagram. And listen, these were the places in which we saw a lot of this, right? Reddit, TikTok, and Instagram, particularly TikTok. Miss Abel responded that she had just spoken to Melissa about this. Yep. And they talked about their plan to actually actively engage in their retaliatory social manipulation campaign. In the weeks and months that followed, with the direction and approval of Wayfarer and Mr. Baldoni, the team engaged in a sophisticated, coordinated, and well-financed retaliation plan. The retaliation campaign relied on more than just publicists and crisis managers spinning stories. They also retrained subcontractors, including a Texas-based contractor named Jed Wallace, who weaponized a digital army around the country from New York to Los Angeles to create, seed, and promote content that appeared to be authentic on social media platforms and internet chat forums. Listen, just between me and you guys, have any of you guys ever been approached to do this sort of thing? Like, are you guys really active on, like, I don't know, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and stuff like that? And someone said, hey, you've got a great following. Come help me bury this person or that person. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy. Where do they find these people? Or are they creating these fake profiles themselves? Like, these are a bunch of employees running, like, their job is to just comment on things on social media so that when they're used to, quote, astroturf, it's not so obvious. Like, well, how do you think that this worked? You know, and it is crazy, Laura, that this completely worked. It's insane. The retaliation, the Baldoni Wayfarer team would then feed pieces of this manufactured content to unwitting reporters, making content go viral in order to influence public opinion and thereby cause an organic pylon. To safeguard against the risk of Ms. Lively ever revealing the truth about Mr. Baldoni, the Baldoni Wayfarer team created, planted, amplified, and boosted content designed to eviscerate Ms. Lively's credibility. They engaged in the same techniques to bolster Mr. Baldoni's credibility and suppress any negative content about him. On August 10th, the day after the release of the film, Ms. Nathan's team reported that they had started to see shift on social. So due to their team's effort to shift the narrative against Ms. Lively. So here's the text. Again, these were subpoenaed, these were verified, and here they are. Hi team, so far extremely limited pickup on Daily Mail or Page 6. We'll continue to keep an eye out and send pieces as needed, but so far it's been steady coverage on pure speculation. We've also started to see a shift on social, due largely to Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. And it's true, people started hating on Ryan. He was collateral damage as well, particularly the thing about him editing a scene. And here's what I'm thinking now. Why did he edit that scene? Was it potentially because it was another inappropriate, gratuitous X scene? Was Justin Baldoni trying to force an oral X scene or something, another violent scene or something like that? Like, what do you think went down? You know, and to think that, like, we were hating on him for it, and he potentially could have just been protecting his wife, right? Like, you know, I really hope that this whole situation, like, helps us realize that, like, we're not everybody on social media is just a regular person posting, you know, their honest, authentic things. Some people are paid to shift public opinion and to manipulate us. And again, we'll continue to send links and screenshots, but wanted to send an update in the meantime. That same day, Ms. Nathan noted that as part of this shift, the majority of socials are so pro-Justin. And the thing is, his team didn't even agree with people being so pro-Justin because they know the real him. The gag is the people are like, they're so pro this guy, and I know he ain't shit. It's crazy. It's crazy. Then you have people coming here storming in on your streams talking about Blake is lying. Blake is this. Look at it. It's in black and white. His own team doesn't like him. Ms. Nathan then brags to Ms. Abel that Baldoni doesn't realize how lucky he is right now. So let's read the exact text. He doesn't realize how lucky he is right now. We need to press on him just how effing lucky. The whispering in the ear, the actual connotations, like Jesus effing Christ, other members feeling uncomfortable watching it. I mean, there's just so much. So there you go. Again, his team, they're saying that he was doing these things. He was whispering in the ears of people who didn't want their ears whispered in. He was doing these actual connotations that Blake was complaining about, right? They're like, dude, what was he thinking? Other people were uncomfortable, not just Blake. And now we've managed to shift that narrative, right? This is scary. This is scary stuff. You just need money. And you need money and a bunch of, people, unscrupulous people ready to destroy someone else's life in order to protect you. More text messages between Melissa and Jen. Jen, this went so well. I'm effing dying. I have to call you later in a bit and tell you how this went. It was genius. So, okay, we have the 4 majors standing down on HR complaint. I think we're fine on that bit. So, there were stories coming out about like the whole HR stuff, and they managed to suppress them and throw Blake and her husband under the bus instead. On August 16, Ms. Nathan circulated a Daily Mail article entitled "String of hard-to-watch videos that have surfaced following tone-deaf Q&A to promote It Ends With Us could tarnish 36-year-old star's golden Hollywood image for good." To which Ms. Abel responded, "Wow, you really outdid yourself with this piece." So what are they implying here? That piece was planted. That their people went to the Daily Mail to plant that story and destroy Blake's life. And again, this is like what I was asking you guys in my morning report. What other, female celebrities have you seen be skewered by the Daily Mail on a regular basis? Don't worry, I'll wait. These smear campaigns work. They're huge. They're happening. There are still other smear campaigns happening right now. And it seems to always be targeting women. So why is it that it's so easy for people to believe the worst of women? Why are we always so quick to destroy women? Why is it always the witch hunt against women? And it is true that there is a difference between harassment and bullying, but harassment, I believe, is a million times worse, especially in that way when you're inappropriately touching people, this, that, and the other, and just all that sorts of nasty stuff, right? So this is a Daily Mail screenshot and them talking about how like amazing it is and how great they did putting that piece out there. And then Melissa responded, "That's why you hired me, right? I'm the best." As their own words reveal, the purpose of this social manipulation plan was twofold. It aimed to both A, conceal the pattern of harassment and other misconduct by Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, and Wayfarer, and B, retaliate against Ms. Lively by battering her image, harming her businesses, and causing her and her family severe emotional harm. Millions of people, including media reporters and influencers who saw these planted stories, social media posts, and other online content had no idea they were unwitting consumers of a crisis PR, astroturfing, and digital retaliation campaign created and funded by Mr. Baldoni and Wayfarer to hurt Ms. Lively. That is precisely the goal of an astroturfing campaign, to light the fire and continue to stoke conversations secretly, blurring the line between authentic and manufactured content and creating public viral takedowns. So here's the thing, you guys. I saw some comments, people saying, "I feel so bad. I feel like a sheep." Don't be so hard on yourself because, Blake even says it's so insidious that people didn't even know that they were falling victim to this manipulation. I think now, and that's why it's amazing that you guys are even here learning more about it and reading the full lawsuit alongside me. It's that let's use this as a teachable moment for ourselves, because I did fall for it as well, particularly when that video of Blake being rude to the reporter came out, so I did fall for it as well. And so, I too want to use this as a teachable moment moving forward, for myself as well in recognizing these things, and it's just very, very sad. As laid out in this complaint, the Baldoni Wayfarer-led public attack on Ms. Lively was the intended result of a carefully crafted, coordinated, and resourced retaliatory scheme to silence her and others from speaking out about the hostile environment that Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath created. As such, it was not only unconscionable and a breach of contract, but also illegal under both state and federal law. Ms. Lively brings this action to hold Wayfarer and its leaders, Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, Mr. Sarowitz, accountable for the ongoing retaliation threats and harm they have caused Ms. Lively, other cast and crew, and all of their families. Now for the factual background. And for some water, because your girl is losing her voice. My third stream of the day, Chow. Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath of Wayfarer engage in inappropriate and unwelcome behavior toward Ms. Lively and others on the set of It Ends With Us. You know, I forgot to ask you that this morning, but quick question. Did you guys watch this movie? I got to tell you that I wanted to watch this movie. You know what happens? For some reason, whenever there's like a scandal involved with a movie, I want to watch it. So It Ends With Us. It wasn't something that was on my radar until all this drama was happening. And I suggested it to my friend when I was in Canada for the summer to go watch it with me. But then she chose a different movie for us, which was Blink Twice, which was another incredible movie. And then I just never got the time to watch it again. You know, same thing with Wicked. There's so much controversy surrounding it, so I wanted to watch it. And so far I haven't been able to, but hopefully I will be able to watch it soon. Oh, I did hear that it was on Netflix. So I'm going to try and watch that during the break since I won't be working on December 25th and the 31st. So let's go ahead and continue with this story. Let me go ahead and make the lawsuit bigger. Mr. Baldoni launched Wayfarer Studios along with Mr. Sarowitz in 2020. Mr. Heath serves as Wayfarer's chief executive officer. Mr. Sarowitz is a leading financier of Wayfarer, and he, Mr. Heath, and Mr. Baldoni are all close personal friends. Under the Wayfarer banner, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath have many platforms, including the Man Enough podcast, which they co-host. Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath have positioned Wayfarer as a male feminine. And I think his Man Enough podcast is about dismantling toxic masculinity as I allegedly harass women on my sets. Listen, y'all, il faut se méfier. You know, you have to be skeptical of these types of men, performative men. A male feminist platform that explores gender roles, dismantles toxic masculinity, and creates a safer and judgment-free society for women. MDRLOL. Mr. Baldoni serves not only as the co-founder and co-chairman of the studio that financed and ran production on It Ends With Us, he also served as director, executive producer, and co-lead actor playing the role of Ryle Kinnaid. What kind of name is that, Ryle? As studio head and director, all actors, crew, and staff on the film, including Ms. Lively, answered to Mr. Baldoni. In his words, he was the leader who sat at the top of the totem pole. While Sony and the distributor releasing the film, Wayfarer was responsible for the production, and Wayfarer was led by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. He had her cornered everywhere, and that's scary. Production of the film began in early May 2023 and lasted until it was suspended in mid-June 2023 due to the Writers Guild of America strike. Which, by the way, I do have to say that the turnaround for this film is drastically quick. They shot this, they did the marketing, the distribution, everything so quickly. I am rather impressed. And I do have to say thank you to Ali for reminding me that it is available on Netflix. I'm going to try to give it a look. During that time, Ms. Lively and other cast and crew experienced invasive, unwelcome, unprofessional, and actually inappropriate behavior by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. Because Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath held all leadership positions on the production, they answered to no one and brushed off or ignored the concerns Ms. Lively and others expressed. Mr. Baldoni ignored well-established industry protocols in filming intimate scenes and exploited the lack of controls to behave inappropriately. Wayfarer failed to adhere to guild rules, as well as Ms. Lively's contract and standard industry safety protocols with respect to nudity and intimate scenes, which the Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, SAG-AFTRA, acknowledges place Performers in uniquely vulnerable situations, such as safeguards ignored by wayfarers, include providing performers with appropriate notice of nudity and simulated X, and ensuring that consent is given free of pressure or coercion. Signed nudity riders are in place, spelling out the parameters of nudity or simulated X scenes. Safe and secure working conditions that are not detrimental to a performer's health, safety, morals, and career, and the use of intimacy coordinators to observe intimate scenes. Without these protections in place, Mr. Baldoni improvised physical intimacy that had not been rehearsed, choreographed, or discussed with Ms. Lively, with no intimacy coordinator involved. For instance, Mr. Baldoni discreetly bit and sucked on Ms. Lively's lower lip during a scene in which he improvised numerous kisses on each take. Mr. Baldoni insisted on shooting the full scene over and over again, well beyond what would have been required on an ordinary set and without advance notice or consent. Do you guys think that he was doing this on purpose? Like, oh, I'm attracted to Blake and I'm gonna, use this as my opportunity to really, kind of get it on with her, so to speak. And I completely agree with you, Shemjen, and it's very, very sad. That makes me very concerned, And again, he's got a wife at home, right? He's got a wife at home and he's out here doing this sorts of stuff. Like, this is so weird. It's sad for Blake. It's sad for anybody else in his path. And it's also sad for his wife, his long-suffering wife. Like, it's giving, what's the name of Adam Levine's wife, Very sad stuff. Oh, Lord have mercy. On another occasion, Mr. Baldoni and Ms. Lively were filming a slow dance scene for a montage in which no sound was recorded. Mr. Baldoni chose to let the camera roll and have them perform the scene, but did not act in character as Ryle. Instead, he spoke to Ms. Lively out of character as himself. At one point, he leaned forward and slowly dragged his lips from her ear down to her neck as he said, "It smells so good." This is your boss. Listen, you know what I think happened with Mr. Baldoni? I think that he was banking on the fact that he's so attractive. Listen, let's be honest here. The man is attractive. Like I told you, outside of my boo, this is one of the most handsome men I've ever seen in my life in person. Okay. Like, he is stunning. He's like a stop and stare kind of beautiful. Right. And so I think maybe he thought that because he has that, Blake would have been okay with this or fawning over him, like maybe the way that other women fawn over him. And so he thought that this would have been welcome, even though it absolutely is not. That's one theory I have. And another theory I have is because in this lawsuit, Blake says that he told her explicitly that he doesn't care about not having consent. And so maybe he gets off on like the power imbalance and stuff like that, and the fact that he didn't have consent. I don't know what was happening. But yeah, very, very scary stuff. Honestly, I can't. So yeah, it smells so good. You're someone's boss, dude. And this was not in the script. This was nowhere like, no. None of this was remotely in character or based on any dialogue in the script. And nothing needed to be said because, again, there was no sound. So he was doing this for no reason. Mr. Baldoni was caressing Miss Lively with his mouth in a way that had nothing to do with their roles. When Ms. Lively later objected to this behavior, Mr. Baldoni's response was, "I'm not even attracted to you." Okay, what does that change? There's a lot of people who do a lot of nasty things to people they're not even attracted to just because they want to get their rocks off. This is weird. Mr. Baldoni inserted improvised, gratuitous, sexual content and or scenes involving nudity into the film, including for an underage character in highly unsettling ways. This part right here in the brackets, underage character, is really sending me in a bad, like, what the hell? After Ms. Lively signed on to the movie based on a draft of the script, Mr. Baldoni, without Ms. Lively's knowledge or consent, personally added graphic content, including a scene in which Ms. Lively was to orgasm on camera. When Ms. Lively objected to these additions, Mr. Baldoni insisted he had added them because he was making the film through the female gaze. Although he agreed to remove the scenes, he made a last-ditch attempt to keep one in which the couple orgasmed together on their wedding night, which he said was important to him because he and his partner climaxed simultaneously during intercourse. Well, is this a movie about you and your girl, or is it a movie about Lily Bloom and Ryle whatever? Mr. Baldoni then intrusively asked Ms. Lively whether she and her husband climaxed simultaneously during intercourse, which Ms. Lively found invasive and refused to discuss. I mean, what does this have to do with the script? Right? It seems like he got like way too friendly with her or something. Like, this is very odd. Yeah, weird stuff. On the day of shooting the scene in which Ms. Lively's character gives birth, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath suddenly pressured Ms. Lively to simulate full nudity, despite no mention of nudity for the scene in the script, her contract, or in previous creative discussions. Mr. Baldoni insisted to Ms. Lively that women give birth naked and that his wife had ripped her clothes off during labor. So there is our feminist king, our feminist ally, who dismantles toxic masculinity, telling a woman who was given birth 4 times how women give birth. Stop it. Stop it. Ms. Lively disagreed, but felt forced into a compromise that she would be naked from below the chest down. To me, that's sad that she even had to kowtow to that, especially considering the fact that she's saying that he would bring his friend onto set, like his creepy friend, just to watch her whenever she'd be nude and stuff. Like, and then you have to agree to this. Like, that's terrible. When the birth scene was filmed, the set was chaotic, crowded, and utterly lacking in standard industry protections for filming nude scenes, such as choreographing the scene with an intimacy coordinator, having a signed nudity rider, or simply turning off the monitors so the scene was not broadcast to all crew on set and on their personal phones and iPad. Ooh, poor her. All of this, everyone saw it. Mr. Heath and Mr. Baldoni also failed to close the set, allowing non-essential crew to pass through while Ms. Lively was mostly nude with her legs spread wide in stirrups and only a small piece of fabric covering her genitalia. That is humiliating. That is unacceptable. That is scary, weird, terrible. I am disgusted on her behalf, that she even had to go through that. And again, normally there's protections in place that state that when you are doing these kinds of films, it's a closed set. People are not getting this footage on, their personal devices, on all the monitors around the place either. And none of that happened. And then on top of that, he brings his creepy friend on set. Dude, right? Among the non-essential persons present that day was Wayfarer co-chairman Mr. Sarowitz, who flew in for one of his few set visits. Ms. Lively was not provided with anything to cover herself in between takes until after she had made multiple requests. Oof, another hit. Guys, I'm looking up a picture of this man. I really want to know what this man looks like. Mr. Sarowitz. Because who the hell is this dude, right? Billionaire Steve Sarowitz. I'm going to pull up a picture for you. This is the guy. Let me make this bigger. That's him. That was creeping, allegedly creeping on Blake regularly with Justin Baldoni. Allegedly, right? Wow. She couldn't even have anything to cover herself in between these takes. Ms. Lively became even more alarmed when Mr. Baldoni introduced his best friend to play the role of the OBGYN. So here's one best friend. I'm rolling in to come watch you shoot these things. Here's another one that I want to be, in between your legs as you're nude. When ordinarily a small role of this nature would be filled by a local actor, Ms. Lively felt that the selection of Mr. Baldoni's friend for this intimate role, in which the actor's face and hands were in close proximity to her nearly nude genitalia for a birth scene, was invasive and humiliating. Yup, it sure is. It sure is. Oh my God. Wow. To add insult to injury, Mr. Heath approached Ms. Lively and her assistant on set and started playing a video. Oh God. It's giving Kanye now, of a fully nude woman with her legs spread apart. Ms. Lively thought he was showing her pornography and stopped him. Mr. Heath explained that the video was his wife giving birth. Now, who asked to watch that? As if this woman who's given birth 4 times doesn't know how it works. Ms. Lively was alarmed and asked Mr. Heath if his wife knew he was sharing the video, to which he replied, "She isn't weird about this stuff." As if Ms. Lively was weird for not welcoming it. Ms. Lively and her assistant excused themselves, stunned that Mr. Heath had shown them a nude video. Listen, for those deniers in here, she's got screenshots, she's got witnesses. I'm sorry, but I believe everything. Mr. Baldoni added a detailed scene to the film in which the underage version of Ms. Lively's character, Lily, loses her virginity. In both the book and the script of the film, there was no X scene. Instead, the details about this moment were left to the audience's imagination. But Mr. Baldoni, again, when corn rots your brain, you think it's acceptable to simulate these things when it comes to children, right? Mr. Baldoni added in considerable details, including both dialogue between young Lily and her boyfriend, Atlas, about the loss of her virginity, as well as a simulated X scene in which Mr. Baldoni filmed and included in his initial cut of the film, a close-up of young Lily's face, accompanied by an audible gasp at the moment of penetration. Ms. Lively was informed that when this scene was shot, after Mr. Baldoni called cut, he walked over to the actress and said, "I know I'm not supposed to say this, but that was hot. Did you two practice this before?" He said that to children? He allegedly said that to children, and some people are still out here defending him? I'm sorry, but we might need to check some of you guys' computers too if you're defending this man. That's crazy. That is crazy. Whew. Lord. Let me catch my breath before we continue along. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Right? You're speaking to children. You're saying an X scene featuring children is hot. Dude, ça va pas ou quoi? There's what's going on? Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath discussed their personal sexual experiences in previous corn addiction and tried to pressure Ms. Lively to reveal details about her intimate life. During a car ride with Ms. Lively and her assistant and driver, Mr. Baldoni claimed Ms. Lively claimed to her that he had been sexually abused by a former girlfriend, which he has since shared publicly. At the end of his story, Mr. Baldoni shared that it had caused him to re-examine his past. He then said, "Did I always ask for consent? No. Did I always listen when they said no? No." You proud of that, dude? Mr. Baldoni claimed this was an example of how we all have things from which we can learn and grow. Ms. Lively was unsettled by Mr. Baldoni's suggestion that he had engaged in sexual conduct without consent. When Ms. Lively exited the car, her driver immediately remarked that he did not want Ms. Lively to be alone with Mr. Baldoni going forward. That's a good driver. You better give him a Christmas bonus, Blake. That's crazy. Crazy. You know what I think happened, Jamina? I think that it was able to continue because Justin and his friend, who was also allegedly being creepy, the billionaire, like the billionaire is a billionaire, right? And then they owned the film. They were the producers, they were the directors, they were the stars. And, HR was not up to par. So who do you go to complain about this stuff, right? When there's no system in place. And then the only other people you can go to complain about this are the people who are victimizing you, allegedly victimizing you, right? So I do think that is how this happened. But again, she's got the proof. She's got the screenshots. She's got the witnesses. So I do think that when this happens and goes to court and everything like that, she will be able to win this case, in my opinion. On the first day of production, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath described their past sexual relationships to Ms. Lively, including that one of them used to hook up with a woman. Mr. Baldoni said that he had decided this woman wasn't the one, so then Mr. Heath had gotten together with her. And it felt like they were doing that with Blake, where Baldoni's like trying to hook the friend up with Blake, not like actually to get with her, but to like see her in compromising positions, allegedly. Ms. Lively found this description of passing along a woman to be disrespectful and disturbing, and I agree. Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath often spoke of their previous pornography addiction. Mr. Baldoni would often reference pornography to Ms. Lively. Hoping to shut the subject down, she said to him privately that she had never seen it. Cap. Later, when Mr. Baldoni was once again referencing his experiences with pornography, he revealed in front of the other cast and crew that Ms. Lively had never seen it. It was an incredible invasion of her privacy, to discuss any aspect of her intimate life with the cast and crew, much less reveal something that she had only told Mr. Baldoni to try to get him to stop talking about the subject with her. He is so dumb. So now we go outside of having just the assistant. just the driver. Now, apparently the entire cast and crew witnessed this, him saying, wow, here's Blake. She's never seen this. Dude, you're filming a movie about domestic violence. Like, what relevance does this have? Mr. Baldoni engaged in other behaviors that were shocking and emotionally distressing. For example, he claimed he could speak to the dead, and on several occasions told her that he had spoken to her dead father. It was off-putting and violative for Mr. Baldoni to claim a personal relationship with her recently deceased father. Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath were also constantly hugging and touching cast and crew. When Ms. Lively or others avoided this touching, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath would retaliate by becoming irritated, cold, and uncollaborative. The result was an unwelcoming and mercurial environment for Ms. Lively, her employees, and others on set. Mr. Baldoni objectified Ms. Lively and other women by commenting on or criticizing their bodies as objects. Listen, this doesn't surprise me, right? When you say that the man had a corn addiction, when you say that the man told stories of passing a girl back and forth between him and his friend and everything like that, it doesn't surprise me that this extended to the ways in which they treated. No, what is this? Your YouTube name. Oh my God. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me, right? He said it to adults. Okay, thank you, Shemjan, because I thought he was saying this to the child actors. That's crazy. Mr. Baldoni often referred to women in the workplace as exy. When they expressed discomfort, Mr. Baldoni would deflect or try to pass it off, which undermined Ms. Lively and others' concerns. For example, on one occasion that Ms. Lively observed, he told a female cast member that her leather pants looked exy when she arrived on set. When she rebuffed his comment because she was uncomfortable, rather than apologizing, he brushed it off with, "I can say that because my wife is here today." Ms. Lively felt embarrassed witnessing this kind of commentary, as did others. Lord, don't even get me started on the way trash men will full-blown try to pick up other women in front of their wives. This happened to me when I was in the corporate world. Oh, my time in the corporate world, the amount of sexual harassment, this is a big reason why I left. Oh God, I had a coworker who was like that too when we were at CES in Vegas, because I used to work in tech. The way this man was just trying to get with me, his wife was there too. It was just very, very, very creepy, very disgusting, right? So the wife being there means nothing. These kinds of guys don't care. On another day, Ms. Lively wore a low-cut dress to facilitate breastfeeding, but had it covered up with a coat. When the jacket briefly popped open at one point to reveal the dress, Mr. Baldoni commented on how much he liked her outfit, which flustered Ms. Lively. Later that day, Mr. Baldoni pressured Ms. Lively, who was in her pre-approved wardrobe, to remove her coat in front of the crew and multiple background actors in a packed bar. He said he wanted to see her onesie under the coat because it was zipped low to reveal her lace bra. Oof. Consistent with past practice, he said, "I think you look sexy," in a tone that made her feel ogled and exposed. With other female cats present, she said, that's not what I'm going for." He bristled and replied, "I'm sorry, hot." Deeply uncomfortable, Ms. Lively said, "Not that either." Or either. Mr. Baldoni responded sarcastically, "I guess I missed the HR meeting," and walked away. Another woman on the production spoke to Ms. Lively afterward to offer empathy and to share her own similar experiences with Mr. Baldoni, commenting about her in actual terms. So there you go, yet another witness. Has someone been keeping track of how many witnesses we've got here? Because to me, it seems like we've got at least a half dozen. We've got at least a half dozen witnesses, right? A lot. Storm, have you been listening to the claims here in the lawsuit? Have you been seeing the the screen captured proof and stuff that showed the smear campaign and whatnot? Just curious, just asking. As a result of Mr. Baldoni's behavior, on May 29, 2023, another cast member lodged an actual harassment complaint about Mr. Baldoni's gross and unwanted comments towards her and others. So there you go, yet another person who has gone on the record and filed their own harassment campaign. So if you don't believe Blake, do you believe any of the other people? The driver? Do you believe the makeup artist, the assistant? Do you believe this other actress that she mentioned in line 44? What about this person in line 45? Or is everybody lying and Justin did nothing wrong to anybody? While on the one hand, Mr. Baldoni was objectifying Ms. Lively as an ex object, on the other hand, he went out of his way to message criticisms of her age and weight, neither of which she could change during filming. On the second day of filming, for example, Mr. Baldoni made the rest of the cast and crew wait for hours while he cried in Ms. Lively's dressing room, claiming social media commentators were saying that Ms. Lively looked old and unattractive based on paparazzi photos from the set. So people are saying these nasty things about you, and here comes this guy crying about that. Oh my God. She tried to reassure him that she should look authentic in the scenes depicted in the photos, which were just after her character had been ABUSED by her fictional husband rather than hot. Mr. Baldoni, however, appeared focused on Ms. Lively's actual appeal above all else. His lengthy outburst caused a delay in shooting. Oh, really? Oh my God. Forcing an emotional scene to be shot haphazardly. To make matters worse, when Ms. Lively tried to have a meeting with Mr. Heath, and the other producers to discuss Mr. Baldoni's unprofessional behavior described above, that meeting turned into yet another violation. Rather than an ordinary meeting time and place, Mr. Heath arrived unannounced at Ms. Lively's hair and makeup trailer while she was topless and having body makeup removed by makeup artists. Ms. Lively told Mr. Heath that she was almost done and they could meet once she was clothed. Mr. Heath, however, insisted that if she didn't allow him into her trailer to speak to him in that moment, then there would be no meeting with the other producers. So there you go. There's some coercion. Let me see you nude, or we will not have this ironic HR meeting. Ms. Lively reluctantly agreed, but asked that Mr. Heath keep his back turned. A few minutes into the conversation, Ms. Lively noticed that Mr. Heath was staring directly at her while she was topless. When she called him out, Mr. Heath brushed it off as a habit of wanting to look at a person while speaking to them. Ms. Lively and her hair and makeup artist were all deeply disturbed by this interaction on just the second day of filming. Throughout filming, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath invaded Ms. Lively's privacy by entering her makeup trailer uninvited while she was undressed, including when she was breastfeeding her infant child. Ms. Lively often had to work while breastfeeding, which she felt comfortable doing so long as she was given the time and space to cover herself. She did this frequently because she was not given breaks to feed her baby. But Ms. Lively did not expect or consent to anyone entering her private spaces while topless, exposed, and vulnerable with her newborn, or during body makeup application or removal. Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath both showed a shocking lack of boundaries by invading her personal space when she was undressed and vulnerable. Mr. Baldoni also routinely degraded Ms. Lively by finding back channel ways of criticizing her body and weight. It's like, what is his thing with her with her body? Like, why is he constantly doing this? It's insane. I feel sad that she was experiencing all of this. A few weeks before filming began, and less than 4 months after Ms. Lively had given birth to her fourth child, Ms. Lively was humiliated to learn that Mr. Baldoni secretly called her fitness trainer without her knowledge or permission and implied that he wanted her to lose weight in 2 weeks. Mr. Baldoni told the trainer that he had asked because he was concerned about having to pick Ms. Lively up in a scene for the movie, but there was no such scene. So he was just saying this to say it, flapping his gums. When Ms. Lively caught strep throat, Mr. Baldoni offered as a gift to connect her with an expert he had on retainer to help her with probiotics to combat the sickness. When Ms. Lively went to fill out the privacy form, she saw the expert was not what Mr. Baldoni had represented her to be, but was instead a weight loss specialist. Oh my God. Ms. Lively felt once again that Mr. Baldoni was shaming her for her body and weight. Dude, that is shocking. 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 Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath failed to implement COVID protocols when there was a COVID outbreak on set. Ms. Lively was told by another producer that because Wayfair did not have insurance of coverage for COVID, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath deliberately withheld from Ms. Lively that she had been exposed to COVID. Both Ms. Lively and her infant child contracted COVID from the outbreak. Yo, like, come on now. A baby catching COVID and everything like that. Like, oh, Lord, that is so damn sad. And you know what? This makes me wonder, why did they even cast her for this role? If he felt that she was old, if she felt that she was ugly, if he felt that she was too big, why cast her? Cast someone else. All these girls in Hollywood, and this is what you decide to, do to somebody? I don't get it. By the way, you guys, just an FYI, we are only on page 20 and we are about 1 hour into the stream. I don't think it's going to be possible to completely finish it today. I think I'll have to do a part 2 tomorrow. It is 8:30 here and we are about to have dinner soon. So I will continue for a little bit more, but I think for the rest that I'm going to have to take it up tomorrow. Okay. So keep an eye out in the community tab. I will be dropping information on when tomorrow's part 2 of this lawsuit is going to be. So make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already so that you do not miss out on that notification. I think we're going to make it up to maybe page 25, okay? Because you're going to hear my stomach grumbling in a second. Ms. Lively and others lodged grievances regarding the conduct of Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath, which Wayfarer declines to investigate. As a studio producing the film, Wayfarer was the employer of all the cast and crew and was thus responsible for ensuring workplace safety on set. However, Wayfarer failed to provide Ms. Lively with even rudimentary employment protections, such as an employee handbook, sexual harassment policy, information, or any training on sexual harassment, discrimination, or respectful workplace expectations. Wayfarer also failed to provide Ms. Lively information about the process and procedure for filing HR complaints. As a producer and owner of the film, Wayfarer was legally obligated to address HR-related concerns or complaints. To Ms. Lively's knowledge, however, Wayfarer lacked any process for responding to complaints about its leadership, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath, who plainly were not going to investigate themselves, right? So that's the thing. Again, this is why complaints were not going anywhere. They were being made, people were speaking out, but HR was not sufficient. And then the people above HR were the people who are allegedly harassing you. So what are you supposed to do? And you're under contract. On May 26, 2023, Ms. Lively told a representative of Sony that she wanted to file an HR complaint about Mr. Baldoni's and Mr. Heath's misconduct. The Sony representative told Ms. Lively that Sony, as a distributor of the film, was not empowered to control Mr. Baldoni or Mr. Heath's behavior on set, and that such concerns must be raised with Wayfarer, the studio responsible for the production. Wayfarer, Mr. Baldoni, and Mr. Heath received or were aware of a number of HR grievances regarding their conduct. For example, on the first day of filming, while attempting to hug Ms. Lively's employee, Mr. Heath said, "I don't even know if we're allowed to do this. It's day 1 and we have an HR report already." So it feels like they were taking the piss. Like, oh, like we could do whatever we want. We're controlling this production. We're the owners. He's a billionaire. We could do whatever we want. And I don't like that. Additionally, early in the production, another actress made a complaint about Mr. Baldoni's comments on her appearance. Mr. Baldoni expressly acknowledged her concerns in writing, stating that he would, quote, adjust accordingly. Yet on June 8th, 2023, the actress informed Ms. Lively that outside of anything in a scene, I actually cannot talk to Justin at all. Mr. Baldoni later expressed suspicion regarding Ms. Lively's friendship with this actress as if they were colluding against him. So there you go, for the people who do not believe Blake. Do you believe these other actresses? Because this is the second or third other actress who allegedly has filed complaints. Or is Mr. Baldoni perfect? As described above, Ms. Lively and others attempted to raise concerns to Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath regarding certain of the conduct described above during filming, but they were not addressed given the futility of asking Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath to address their own behavior. After unsuccessfully attempting to raise concerns with Sony, Ms. Lively expressly told Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath that there were serious HR problems on set. Mr. Heath responded that they knew, implying that someone had mentioned to them that Lively had raised concerns. In response, Mr. Heath told Ms. Lively that he thought she had wanted to see the nude video of his wife. Yeah, because that's what everyone wants to see, your wife giving birth. In the same conversation, when Ms. Lively expressed her upset, Mr. Heath and Mr. Baldoni had hidden the fact that she had been exposed to a COVID outbreak on set for which she and her infant contracted COVID. Instead of acknowledging the responsibility and committing to safely moving forward, they expressed upset over production days missed and resulting costs. Despite receiving multiple detailed reports by Ms. Lively and others about Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's misconduct, Wayfarer failed to investigate those reports or to otherwise institute protections for the cast. This is so even though the incidents discussed above, among others, did not take place in isolation, and many, if not all, were witnessed by others. Again, I do not think that I do not think that she would be making these allegations if, and claiming other people witnessed everything if she was not ready to call them up. Because that's what happens when you mention that people witness things, you're going to have to call them up to testify on your behalf. So I think that Blake did this because she feels as though she's got a case and these people will testify to having witnessed what she's claiming they've witnessed. Thank you, Mermaid Reviews. I was wondering why she was casted if he felt like she was not, the right person for the role. So now seeing that it was the author who wanted her, it makes a lot more sense. By these and other behaviors, Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, and Wayfarer engaged in harassing conduct and failed their obligations to investigate complaints of workplace harassment, to prevent inappropriate and harassing behaviors on set, and to provide avenues for cast and crew members to safely raise concerns to neutral parties so that they could be investigated and appropriately addressed. The parties negotiate a contract rider regarding Mr. Baldoni's and Mr. Heath's conduct on the set of It Ends With Us. On May 2nd, 2023, the Writers Guild of America, made up of 2 American labor unions representing more than 16,000 writers in film, television, and radio and online media, went on strike in connection with a labor dispute with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to send a text message to my lover. He's in the other room. I don't know if he's taking a nap or if he's up. Voila. So I'm just going to send a message because I'm sure he's probably hungry. The film temporarily halted production in June 2023 as a result of WGA picketing. On June 15, 2023, Wayfarer and Mr. Baldoni announced the continued halted production of the film due to the ongoing WGA strike and the lost days experienced from picketing. While the WGA strike was underway, on July 14, 2023, the American Actors Union, known as SAG-AFTRA, a labor union that represents about 160,000 people in the entertainment industry, including actors, recording artists, and everybody, began to strike due to a labor dispute with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. The strike ended on September 27, 2023, and the WGA, then the SAG-AFTRA strike, ended months later on November 9, 2023. Before returning to production, Ms. Lively attempted to address and resolve the problems on set and requested that Wayfarer agree to address the conditions described above. On November 9th of 2023, Ms. Lively's attorneys provided Wayfarer's attorney with a document entitled Protections for Return to Production, attached hereto as Exhibit A. In conveying the protections for return to production document, Ms. Lively requested that Wayfarer agree to implement a plan that would enable everyone to return to work and complete the film with adequate protections to ensure a safe set moving forward. On November 11, 2023, a counsel for Wayfarer indicated that Wayfarer, Sony, and production respectfully acknowledge that your client has concerns regarding safety, professionalism, and workplace culture. Although our perspective differs in many aspects, ensuring a safe environment for all is paramount, irrespective of differing viewpoints. Regarding your outlined requests, we find most of them not only reasonable, this feels like deja vu because I think they opened with this. On November 15th of 2023, Wayfarer, through It Ends With Us Movie LLC, agreed to the terms in a contractual rider executed on January 19th, 2024, and attached hereto as Exhibit B. Among the contract rider's provisions, there was A, the first provision required that an intimacy coordinator must be present at all times when Ms. Lively is on set. B, with respect to artists, any and all rehearsal, filming, review, or video playback, or dailies and or other interaction with any scene involving simulated sex, nudity, and or partial nudity shall be restricted to those persons with essential business reasons for being present, as approved by Ms. Lively and Todd Black, as further described in the nudity rider as scheduled. I do have to say, and I think that this is because of the power and money that she has, but I am really, really proud of Blake for having all of these things like in writing and having this team behind her and saying, hey, listen, we're not doing this. Like, these are my limits. These are my boundaries. And that's that, like, who's this? What scared me? Someone's going into my neighbor's house. I thought it was mine. And I think that that is so impressive. She's like, I want to be able to approve everybody coming in. I do not want this. I do not want that. I don't know how you guys run your little productions, but so long as I'm here, we are going to do this right. And, kudos to her on that. The third provision required that there is to be no spontaneous improvising of any scenes involving intimate or actual physical touching, simulated X, or nudity with respect to Ms. Lively. Good for her. Like, it's crazy that he wanted to improvise that, because I do think that it's normal in the acting world to improvise certain things that happen, like jokes or whatever. But when it comes to that sort of thing, consent should be given. And there should be a plan in place, and there should be an intimacy coordinator and everything else as well. So kudos to her for breaking that down. Let me get back to this. We're almost on the last page that I'm going to be reading for today. If you guys want more, definitely make sure to keep an eye out in my community tab. I'll be posting a link for tomorrow's part 2 of this. I think I will do this early before the morning report tomorrow. Okay. Perhaps I have to see how things work. Scenes involving Ms. Lively that involves kissing, depictions of actual intercourse, or any other intimate / actual physical touching must be contained in the screenplay, i.e., the most up-to-date draft approved by Ms. Lively in writing, choreographed in advance in the presence of the intimacy coordinator, and may only proceed as choreographed with the consent of all participants in advance. The fourth provision required that physical touching and or comments on Ms. Lively's physical appearance must only be done / made in connection with the character and scene work, not as to Ms. Lively personally, except as written into the screenplay or as strictly required in connection with makeup or costume preparation. There is to be no physical touching, including hugging, of Ms. Lively, her on-set personnel, and or her employees. The fifth provision required that there are to be no discussions with Ms. Lively of personal experiences. So we already went through these provisions. They were attached in the first page or second page as a screenshot. So I'm just going to zoom past here a little bit. There shall be no rehearsal or filming of Ms. Lively, including her approved body double, of any nudity, partial nudity, and or simulated X, except as expressly permitted in accordance with the nudity rider, right? Then the 10th provision required that there shall be no retaliation of any kind against Ms. Lively for raising concerns about the conduct described in this letter, or for these requirements. Any changes in attitude, sarcasm, marginalization, or other negative behavior, either on set or otherwise, including during publicity and promotional work, as a result of these requests, is retaliatory and unacceptable and will be met with immediate action. So she and her legal team really said, F around and find out. Wow. It was already written. Justin and his team had signed on to this, agreeing that they would not be retaliating against her. And what do we find out? Allegedly, they were doing just that. I wonder if how much money she's seeking, because again, this is not the official legal complaint. This is the precursor, right? So how much money do you think she's going to be seeking in damages? Her non-alcoholic seltzer line, her hair care line, all suffered as a result of this. Her public reputation suffered, right? Her mental health, everything. How much money do you think she's going to be asking for, you guys? Let me know in the live chat, or if you are part of my playback posse, my VOD squad, let me know in the comment section of this video, okay? And now we are rounding up into the final page I'm going to be reading today, which is page 25. The 12th provision required that Wayfarer will engage in an additional experienced A-level producer. Okay, so these are things that we saw in red. In that first page. So, okay, I'll go to page 26 because these provisions we had already read. And then they talk about how the all hands in-person meeting provided in the contract occurred on the 4th of January, 2024, before production resumed as described above. The meeting was attended by Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, producer Alex Sachs, and all the other people we read about in page 1. At the January 4th, 2024 meeting, the parties discussed a list of 20 examples of the behaviors that gave rise to the contract writer from her contemporaneous notes. These behaviors are listed in full earlier in this complaint at paragraph 3. Neither Mr. Baldoni nor Mr. Heath denied the veracity of Ms. Lively's examples. So there you go. People are writing for him, and he's not even writing for himself. They're like, oh, you know what, y'all got me. Y'all got me. And then you've got people coming here like, no, they didn't do that. Are you sure? Are you sure? Ms. Lively requested that Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath agree that such behaviors would no longer take place. See, no longer take place, not arguing about whether or not it took place. As memorialized in the language of the writer, and Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath agreed. Production concluded and Ms. Lively and other cast and crew promoted the film according to the marketing plan. Production of the film resumed on January 5th, 2024 and concluded on February 9th, 2024. In connection with the film's public release, Ms. Lively and the rest of the cast actively promoted the film in accordance with the marketing plan for the film, attached hereto as Exhibit C. Wayfarer had embraced and, on information and belief, had formally approved of this marketing plan. The marketing plan and related talking points expressly required Ms. Lively, as well as all other cast and crew engaged in promotional activities, to focus more on her character's strength and resilience, as opposed to describing the film as a story about domestic violence, and to avoid talking about this film that makes it feel sad or heavy. It's a story of hope. As detailed above, Ms. Lively and fellow cast members promoted the film in accordance with the talking points and marketing plan during appearances on red carpets, interviews, press junkets, fan events, and pop-up experiences leading up to the film's release. Mr. Baldoni publicly embraced the marketing plan. In early May 2024, Mr. Baldoni appeared at a floral-themed trailer launch event, which included him personally making flower bouquets for influencers, a photo opportunity, and a film-branded latte art. As late as July 25th, 2024, Mr. Baldoni appeared at a pop-up of Lily Bloom's flower shop in Century City, California, where he had held a long-stem rose microphone and playfully gave tours of the shop to influencers. In a TikTok interview posted that day, Mr. Baldoni excitedly walks through the pop-up and states that he will be giving tours all day, every day until August 9th. So she's saying, listen, y'all thought I was being flippant, but that was part of the plan. Even the boss was doing that, you know? And then they're going to get into the text proof that she's got that Justin decides to change his strategy as he amps up this this plan with his publicity people. Okay. You guys, that's a lot to get through. We're going to have to put a pin in it for now, but I'm proud of us. We just finished 26 pages out of 80 pages. We're almost halfway there. Keep an eye out for my community tab when I figure out a time to go live about this, the rest of this tomorrow, okay? But in the meantime, take good care of yourselves. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been quite the day today. I feel like I've been live all day with you guys today, which has been amazing. So I'm really looking forward to continuing this tomorrow, getting to the bottom of it all. And then I think perhaps maybe I will also pre-record or maybe do a quick little stream on the 25th about the New York Times article outlining the smear campaign. It's a lot to get through, and I really do thank you guys for being here with me as we go through all of this. So thank you so much for joining me. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed reading along with me. Cheers. Happy holidays.